Hey, the word obese is garbage, and here's why. First, the word obese literally means something that's eaten itself fat, which is not only deeply stigmatizing, but it's also inaccurate for many fat people who are not fat because of eating. There are many reasons why people are fat. Some include food, but many do not.
Yo-yo and hello, my name is Lydia, and on today's episode of my 25-pound yo-yo, we'll be talking about the word obese. And is it garbage? The fat acceptance word police are at it again. First, they told us that we are no longer allowed to feel fat. Then, they took the word flattering away from us because it's offensive. And now the word obese, well, it's just garbage. I'm not going to debate the stigma around the word obese, but I will debate its accuracy. So let's watch again what Hannah had to say about the word obese and its definition.
First, the word obese literally means something that's eaten itself fat, which is not only deeply stigmatizing, but it's also inaccurate for many fat people who are not fat because of eating. There are many reasons why people are fat. Some include food, but many do not.
Are there? Because I don't think that there are. I recognize that there are many external factors and influences out there that make it difficult for a person to attain a healthy weight. But it always comes back down to calories in versus calories out. So why don't we watch this next clip about reasons why a person could be obese and then come back and discuss.
Why am I obese? My metabolism is slow. People don't just have slow metabolisms. Your metabolism probably works just as it should. This is usually the conclusion that people come to when they don't actually know how many calories they eat versus burn, and also compare themselves to others that appear to eat whatever they want and still stay slim. I have many videos on this, but in general, unless you have a real medical condition, your metabolism is not the cause of your weight. I have bad genetics. Obesity does run in a lot of families, but genetically speaking, it's only responsible for a few extra pounds of fat. The hereditary part that was handed down to you was likely bad eating habits and lifestyle. My hormones are out of whack. Hormone imbalances can make it difficult to maintain your weight, but that's because they mess with your hunger and fullness cues. Hormones can make you feel hungry when you are not, and not feel satisfied when you've had enough to eat, but they alone do not make you gain weight. My environment is to blame. We are surrounded by prepackaged and fast foods, foods that are laden with sugar, fat, excess calories, and little to no nutritional value. Foods that are not good for us are much more convenient, and thus many of us choose them despite their impact on our health. The environment makes it easy for us to make bad choices, but on its own, it doesn't make us gain weight. I'm poor. Healthy food is expensive, and inexpensive healthy food requires preparation time. If you are poor and lacking time in your day to cook, you likely exist off of convenience foods. The lack of healthy options is not your fault, but the poverty on its own does not cause weight gain. My medication causes weight gain. Many people take medications where the side effect is weight gain, but do they ask why? Medications don't magically make you gain more than a few pounds of water weight. Most of the time, weight gain is the result of lethargy, burning less calories, or increased appetite, eating more calories. The medication alone does not cause weight gain. I have a medical condition. Many people struggle with medical conditions such as PCOS and insulin resistance that make weight loss difficult and weight gain easy. However, it always comes back to conditions triggering a desire to consume more and take more to become satisfied. These conditions make it challenging to lose weight, but they do so by making it more difficult to stick to a diet rather than making any diet unfeasible. I am not a medical professional. I only know what I have personally researched. And there may be medical conditions that do make you obese without the overconsumption of calories. But as of right now, I am unaware of any.
So what was the point of all of this? Well, it wasn't to say that everybody can lose weight and they just should. That wasn't it at all. And it wasn't to make a mockery of the difficult situations that people do face while losing weight. It was solely to illustrate that all of the reasons come back down to calories in versus calories out. Therefore, in my opinion, doesn't it make sense that the word obese, to have eaten oneself fat, still makes sense? It doesn't mean that the person had easy circumstances or it was an easy choice for them to make to become obese. It just means that they have eaten themselves fat. And that is really what happens. All these other influences just make it easier for a person to eat more. Now, let's go through them in a little bit more detail. How many times have you heard someone say, my metabolism is just slow? Well, truthfully, it's likely not. I have done many videos on metabolic myths, and I will link them in the description. But in essence, most people have a metabolism that works as it should. They just don't know how many calories they actually consume versus burn, and are just loosely judging it based on what they think other people are also eating and burning. But when you actually add up the numbers, your metabolism probably works just fine. One of the most common things that people do is they'll look at a thin person and see them eat a lot and go, well, I can't eat like that, I'll get fat. But they don't know that that thin person doesn't eat like that all the time, or that their activity levels are actually a lot higher than what you see in that snapshot. So people think that those other people are lucky with a fast metabolism, but the truth is they don't really eat that much, or they burn a lot more calories than you might think that they do. Women also compare themselves to men a lot of the time and think that we can eat the same as them, especially if they're in similar size to us. But what we forget is that men have more muscle mass and they need more calories to sustain their weights than women do. And if we eat as much as men, we will not just meet their weights, we will surpass their weights. And that is something else that people are not aware of. So it really isn't that your metabolism is broken. It means that you don't know what your metabolism does and how much you should be eating and should be burning in order to maintain a healthy weight. Genetics do play a big role into what our bodies look like. Our genetics dictate our size, our shape, our bones, our muscle. It dictates a lot. However, nobody is genetically predisposed to be morbidly obese. Within the BMI scale, the healthy weight range for someone my height is like 108 pounds to 140-ish, maybe 45 pounds. That's a pretty sizable range. So no, there is no perfect weight for someone of my height to be, but genetics will dictate where we fall within that healthy-ish weight range. Of course, there's going to be some outliers, a couple below and a couple above, but in general, for someone of my height, I think 108 to 145 pounds seems pretty reasonable. I'm not genetically disposed to be as skinny as some of my friends who are 110 pounds, and I'm also not genetically disposed to be as thick and as muscular as some of my other friends that are closer to 140 pounds that are also the same height as me. So yes, genetics do dictate our size and shape to a degree, but genetics for obesity don't exist. We have genetics that will make us predisposed, such as the FTO gene, for a couple extra pounds of fat. And I think that at the maximum, it's like 7. It's not that much. When people say that obesity runs in their family, what it really is the bad eating habits and lifestyle. If you grew up eating prepackaged foods and high sugar cereals and going out for fast food all the time, well, of course that's going to affect your adult life. You learned how to eat when you were young and you carried it through as an adult. So yes, obesity runs in your family, but this is nurture, not nature. Hormone levels are another thing that I've also heard many times. I am gaining weight because my hormone levels are all out of whack and I just need to regulate them. But what that means is that your hormones are making you hungry. Your hormones don't just make you fat. Your hormones dictate when you're hungry and when you're full and when you want to eat again and what you're craving. So when your hormones are out of balance, it just triggers the eating. The hormones themselves don't make you fat. Our environment is very different than it was 50 years ago. We have so much more convenience food, so much more processed food, so much more fast food, and we have all these food delivery services. It's so easy to get your hands on food quickly, cheaply, and with very, very little nutritional value. This is a fact of our society right now. But Nobody is making you eat the food. You have to eat the food. And when you eat the food, that is when you gain the weight. So the environment is a huge influence. And I'm not saying that it's not impactful on our lives. Of course it is. But because we have to actually eat the food, it doesn't make you gain weight by itself. And of course, the same thing goes with poverty. It's horrible that food that's good for you is expensive and food that's bad for you is really cheap. And this is a product of our environment. I don't want to make this video political about the reasons why poorer communities don't have access to better food. I only want to illustrate the point that the poverty influences the food choices, and it's not the poverty itself that makes someone obese. Medication is one of the ones that I hear the most from my friends. I can't lose weight, I'm on medication, or my medication is making me fat. Medication does not make you gain weight by itself. I did another video dedicated to how does medication make you gain weight. And all that I could find is that some medications will make you hold a few pounds of water weight, but other than that, they don't make you gain weight. They make you lazy. They make you tired so that you can't move. So then you burn less calories. Or they make you crave certain foods, or they make you not notice when you're hungry, or make you not notice when you're full. So medications really mess with your system. And I'm not trying to minimize that medications will mess you up and make you do things that you don't normally do, thus make you gain weight. But because it comes back to driving the appetite, you still need to eat to gain the weight. Therefore, you still are essentially eating yourself fat. I've also heard many times about medical conditions. Now, I am not a doctor, so I am not going to say there is absolutely no way that you can't gain weight without overeating, because I am not a doctor. I don't know. But I've been trying forever to research and find what medical condition can you have that makes you gain weight without the overconsumption of calories. And I can't find it. I have a video about insulin resistance. And from what I've learned, the cycle continues by triggering your brain to keep on consuming more carbs, and then the excess glucose gets stored as fat. But if you weren't over consuming the carbs in the first place, then there would be no excess. I'm not saying that if you are insulin resistant, it is easy to lose weight. It's not. Your brain is playing tricks on you, and it's very, very difficult to lose weight. But there is something happening that's triggering an overconsumption of calories. So it does come back to calories in and calories out. So for me, if the definition of obese is eaten oneself fat, I don't see how this is incorrect. So now that we've determined that obese is a valid and correct word for what it's defining, let's see what else Hannah had to say about the topic.
Next, the word obese didn't enter common usage until the 1830s when Adolphe Quetelet invented the BMI. Today, the word obese only has significance within the context of the BMI, and it has no value outside of that structure. If you haven't watched my video about how terrible the BMI is, pause this and go do that. If we are to stop using the BMI, which we should, that also means dismissing its components. We actually don't need to pathologize body size in order for doctors to treat fat patients. In fact, the quality of care increases dramatically when doctors do not pathologize fat patients. For all of these reasons and more, please just use the word fat. It's a morally neutral descriptor.
So Hannah debates that the word obese is only used in BMI, and because she thinks BMI is garbage, we need to throw out BMI and everything associated with BMI. But if you look up obesity, BMI is only one of 3 measures that they use to measure obesity. They use BMI, they also use body fat, and they also use abdominal obesity, where they measure your waist circumference. So it's not just BMI. BMI works for most. It's usually the first test that they do. But if you are very, very muscular and you have an obese BMI, like over 30, the doctor's going to look at you and go, well, you're obviously not that obese. So they'll probably use a different metric on you. They'll use body fat, or maybe they'll take a waist circumference. Doctors are not stupid, but BMI does work for most. If you are morbidly obese and you walk into the doctor's office and you say you refuse to use BMI, do you not think the doctor can look at you and deduce what your body fat or your abdominal circumference is as well? They don't need to use BMI. They use BMI because it's the most easy and convenient method, but they can also just use their eyeballs and say if you are over fat or not. I also find it really interesting, this whole campaigning for the use of the word fat. And the way they said it, just use fat. It's like, do you really think that most of the population thinks that fat is more acceptable than obese? I could not imagine going to any of my larger friends and just free-willingly throw out the word fat around them. I just don't understand this. I guess in their minds, that word is offensive, but it's not offensive to everyone. So the whole stigma around the word obese, I don't think it's coming from the greater part of the population. This is just coming from one small group of activists. And I think it would be much, much more harmful if we just started throwing around the word fat to everybody, saying, no, this is a neutral word. I think it really comes down to the delivery of the word. You can say fat or obese in a neutral way, or you can say fat and obese in a hateful way. It's all about the tone. And I'll give you one for me that used to be a hot word, which is no longer a hot word for me, and that is colored. Now, when I was young, I hated when someone called me colored, because the way that they said it was, oh, it's a colored girl. It was like, you are not white. We don't know what you are. We don't want to know what you are. You are just colored. And it was very, very hurtful. But I actually like the word now. And the reason why, it's because it's how I identify. I actually hated when I was younger being forced to identify with an ethnicity that I have no ties to. So yes, for all of you who are curious to know what the heck I am Asian, Indian, Portuguese, English, and Scottish. I am a mix of many different things. So I don't identify as anything other than Canadian, but I'm a minority. I'm brown. So I don't mind being a colored person. I actually identify more as that because I am a brown Canadian. I am not Indian. I am not Asian. I look that way, but that's not the food I was raised on. That's not the language I speak. That's not the clothes that I wear. So I prefer actually the word colored, but it all depends on the delivery. I am a proud Canadian colored woman, or a woman of color. But if someone says, colored girl, well then that is a slur. It's all about the delivery, it's not the word. Well, that was all we had for this TikTok, but Hannah is not done talking about this topic. In fact, she has this to say.
I can always identify someone who doesn't have a great grasp on history if they see medicalization as a stamp of inherent virtue. This comes up a lot when I talk about how the word obese is a slur. At least one person will always pop their head out of the ground to say, obese is a medical term, as if that somehow makes it better.
And I have a lot to say about that too. But this video is long enough already, so I'm going to save that for next week. So until next time, yo-yo and let's go.